that won't quit. Its purpose to force the normies to swallow the red pill against the narrative. A ruthless force determined to keep everyone asleep. They broadcast the truth on Rumble, on clouds dropping red pills every week. Overwatch and the Guardian. The narrative is weak.
We can't let it end like this.
It's too late.
Defenders of the Overwatch and the Guardian. Overwatch and the Guardian. Overwatch and the Guardian. Overwatch and the Guardian.
Overwatch and the Guardian.
It gets me pumped up every time,
Yes,
Joe.
every time. What's up, Alpha? How we doing, buddy? Long time no see.
I tell you, man, I'm doing good. February 19th, 2026, folks. The show is live. If you're wondering, shout out to everybody that's watching on all the different platforms. If you could do me and Josh a solid right now, wherever it is that you're watching, share the link out, smash the thumb, hit the heart, leave a comment. This is labeled as episode 2, but if you count the premiere, which was episode 0, this is a third one. And tonight's episode is gonna be a pretty fun conversation. We kind of hinted at it when we did DEF CON this week, if you guys caught that during the show. And we're considering and maybe even making this one be one of those on-site location shows in the future.
We might be traveling to New Mexico to investigate this a little bit.
Just a little bit. We're just, I'm not really fond of being probed. I don't know how Josh feels about that one. That's just,
Well, listen, we can start this conversation off in many different ways. Number one, I've had multiple experiences throughout my life. My family's had multiple experiences with everything from the paranormal to what we would consider to be alien, right? Alien extraterrestrial, or lights in the sky that manifest into things. In 1968, in my hometown, my father, my uncles, there was a massive UFO sighting in that area, actually documented by Project Blue Book. During that time, my dad used to talk about being carried out his window at night. Listen, my brothers and I, after my father passed away, we all met up at my father's house in California. We were talking, and we all had like the same type of nightmares when we were younger of being carried out the window, floating out the window, and this abduction style type of thing that happened to us. And then there is multiple occurrences throughout my childhood. And then I had one occurrence that kind of didn't haunt me my whole life, but it was an experience when I was 10 years old. And I remember it vividly. I've told the story hundreds and hundreds of times throughout my life, but there was a small part of it that I never put 2 and 2 together with. And it was quite interesting. It was me and my buddy, we were thought we were ninjas. And so we dressed up in our ninjas. We had our tabby boots on. We had kitchen knives all tucked in. And we snuck out of my mom's house when we were doing a sleepover around 10:30 at night. And we're crawling through the field to my dad's house, which is about 400, 500 yards away in the field. And my house was south to north is the Rochester International Airport. Planes always used to come over. And I remember we were sitting by the mound behind my mom's house. We're not sitting, we're crawling on the ground. And I remember we're watching this plane come in, and it just kept on getting lower and lower. And it was very bright. You know how lights sometimes have that spotlight they can put down on the ground? And it looked like a spotlight coming down on the ground. And I remember it coming down, and I looked at Tommy and I said, I don't hear any sound. We looked at the plane. We're saying, oh, look at the plane. And I'm like, I don't hear any sound. The next thing I know is we're coming to, and we're crawling again, and there's dew all over the grass, and we're all soaking wet. And we get up and we run to my dad's house, and I get to my dad's house, and he's on the phone, and he's in the back door, And he opens the door and, where the hell have you guys been? We've been looking for you guys forever. What the hell? And we're like, what are you talking about? It's been like 15 minutes. He's like, it's 4:30 in the morning. And we're like, what? And so I've told this story over and over and over again. And I told it on one of my shows, Conversation on the Fringe, one night, and we were in a Zoom afterwards. And it was actually my other brother who's like, he's like, dude, you had missing time. I'm like, I didn't have missing time. Because yeah, you did. I'm like, what? Like I couldn't even comprehend the idea that I had missing time, even though I tell it within the story of my experience and I remember the missing time. And so I've done kind of regressive therapy to kind of see what happened. And I have vivid memories of what happened and the experience that came about. And I've had multiple other experiences since then. And then I find out even so that other members of my family, the next generation, have also had similar experiences throughout the last few decades. So it's kind of interesting. And like someone's like, that's what acid trips do to you. Yeah, that's what acid trips do to you. But I will tell people from my experience, the phenomena is very, very real. Whether or not we have an explanation for it, I'm very rational when it comes to these types of topics. I tend to think that I am very in tune and coherent with my mind and my body to understand that when a human being has an experience that may be outside of the natural type of everyday experiences, our brains trick ourselves, and we tend to create a hallucination of what we believe we are seeing versus what's actually being experienced. I'm not completely contrary to that, right? Like I understand that, but yet at the same time, I have to be truthful to myself of what I remember in the context of what I experienced. And I've had other experiences throughout my life that have happened, and I would even consider them angelic experiences. And I know some people be like, aliens or demons or aliens or like, listen, I don't classify things like that. I've had too many experiences in my life to classify it as this or that or this. What I will say and how I classify these things is that I group it all into one category. I look at it like this, is that there's there's beings from other planets, other solar systems, and other galaxies. There's things that are interdimensional, and I talked about that the other day. The phase transitional shift is that right now we only view 2% of the known universe. This is what we interact with called matter. We have these other things, dark energy and dark matter, which are just placeholders for the shit we don't know what exists. But think about it as a phase orientation, is that we can only interact with 2% of the actual physical reality. Well, what happens when a being can interact with 4 or 5% of that? That gives them influence over our domain, but we cannot perceive or interact with their domain. So that would be like the interdimensional perspective. That thing exists. And then you have what we would consider to be angels and demons. And maybe this is more etheric or ethereal or spiritual in its context. The one commonality that they all have is that they are expressions of consciousness. Just like Alpha is expressing his consciousness, I'm expressing my consciousness. It's life. It has some sustainment of life. It expresses intelligence, and it does it through consciousness. And so I group everything together in the context of it's intelligent and it expresses consciousness. I don't tend to say that this is that or this is that. We don't know. And anybody who's saying that like they're demons, you don't know. Stop that. You don't know. And if you've never had the experience, then you shouldn't even be talking on that topic, right? Well, I have faith. Well, I get you have faith. I have faith too, but I've also had these experiences, and I have 20, 30 years of research and investigation into my own experiences, and I can tell you otherwise. So at least kind of like, I think that's a good place to start, that I've had these experiences. I come from a person who's researched this topic very, very deeply. I wouldn't say I have post-traumatic stress, but definitely it's affected my life and caused different pathways in my life because of my experiences. And in the sense of what it is, I don't even know. And I don't think really anybody does, even our government. And we'll get into some of that conversation here tonight of maybe what it is and what it's not, or what is influencing the government or not influencing the government, secret space programs, underground military bases, things that I know about that. And I've heard through the grapevine, that I've heard from people I know, that I for anybody who doesn't know, I talk about this openly, but I try not to. But I have contacts that over the years I've befriended, and one of them is incredibly legitimate, who's, let's just say, worked in some of these SAP USAP programs. And this person has given me validated information over and over and over and over again. A lot of it I don't put out. I talked about some of it the other night, but let's just say that there's more going on this planet than we tend to understand. And that here is the most important part of it. Everything that's happening right now has to do with it, including Epstein.
That is very true. Let me ask you this question, and then I'm going to do an ad real quick. Are we ever going to learn what it is, or do we learn what it wants us to think it is? And don't answer that yet. Let me run an ad, then you run an ad, and we'll get into that, and then we'll kick this off with, you know, some of the black pilling Epstein stuff that's going out there. But just think about that question, folks. Do we ever learn what it is, or do we just learn what it wants us to think it is? Because that's what I was kind of contemplating. So we got to give a shout out to Rumble, because Rumble is keeping us alive, folks. So of course, they can freeze your accounts, shut off your cards, lock you out of your own money overnight. Banks don't protect you, they control you. That's why real financial freedom starts with ownership. Introducing Rumble Wallet, a non-custodial wallet built for people who refuse to give up control. With Rumble Wallet, you don't just buy digital currency like Bitcoin and Tether. You can own Tether Gold, real gold, on the blockchain. Through Tether Gold, you get direct ownership of physical gold bars, each one fully allocated, verifiable by serial number, purity, and weight. This isn't paper gold. This isn't an IOU. This is real gold without bank vaults, storage fees, or gatekeepers. You can buy, sell, or move it 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, even when traditional gold markets are closed. And if you want, Tether Gold can be redeemed for physical gold. That's power. And when you want to support creators on Rumble, like us, you can tip us directly by using the Rumble wallet that you'll see on both of our Rumble screens right about there, peer-to-peer and outside the banking system. No permissions, no middleman, no cancel button. This wallet is yours forever. It's all yours, Josh.
Awesome. So I only have that same one, so I'm going to wait till the end to go ahead and do that one. But, you know, for the time being, people, if you want to support myself or Alpha, go on over to alphawarrior.tv or go to redpills.tv. Right now, I'm running a Give, Send, Go campaign for anybody who wants to help me out and help get the Red Pill Project keeping going. That's give.redpills.tv. We have a monthly goal. If you can help support us there, that's much appreciated. So that'll be my ad for this one right here. But
let's break down this question then, and then we'll walk this question into our show tonight. And for those of you that haven't realized it and you don't look at the titles, we are going to be talking about what is the Dolce Base, you know, out in New Mexico, aliens, and a whole lot of other stuff. But to the question, Josh, do we ever learn what it is, or just what it wants us to think it is?
So I think we already know what it is or what they are, because I mean, there's not one single kind of perspective on it. But when you frame that in the sense that what it wants us to think it is, and that I think is truly important, because that's where a lot of this other parts come in. And I think we'll get into that conversation here in a bit. Now, Q is asked during a Q&A. Q, are we alone? Roswell. Now, this is also interesting. I'm going to point this out to people here, okay? He says, no, highest classification, consider the vastness of space, okay? Now, that's kind of interesting. Now, do you remember the clip with Don Jr. and Trump when he's interviewing Trump? This was July 16th, 2020. And Don Jr. says, we want to know about aliens, about Roswell. And then Trump says, well, Roswell, that's a really interesting place. And Don Jr. says, are you going to ever open it up? And he goes, yeah, Roswell. Roswell was an incident that happened, not a place. He's talking about Area 51 as the place. Now, this is kind of interesting that Q references, it's referenced in the question, Roswell. Now, Roswell, 1947, I think it was July 14th, 1947 is when Roswell happened. That's why Don Jr. was asking that question, because it was right after that. And what's suspected to have happened at Roswell, what you hear through the grapevine with the people that lived it in the 1990s, Jesse Marcel, these types of people, they said they were testing a new type of radar and something crashed in the farmer's field outside of the base. It's also the base that Roswell, where the Enola Gay that dropped the bomb on Hiroshima and Nagasaki came from. And that when they got to the crash site, there was, I think, 3 entities that 2 of them were dead. 1 of them was alive. They recovered it. The newspaper the next day broadcasted that they recovered a flying saucer. And then that was immediately covered up to a weather balloon, where you see the picture of Jesse Marcel holding up a piece of the weather balloon. Like this isn't what, but everything moved to Wright Pat. From we get from the timeline is then it moves to Nellis, and there's a facility built by EG&G outside of Nellis called Area 51, S2 and S4. And that is where it all moved to. And I believe since then it's moved into a secret underground complex that the U.S. government has in Western Utah. So I don't know if people knew that or not, but I always found it interesting when Donald Trump talks about these things. He always mentions Roswell, which is the Q reference of when he was asked that question. Even when he was on, what is it? Jake Logan. Is that his name? Jake Logan?
I have to see his face.
This guy.
Oh, Jake Paul.
Logan's his brother, Logan Paul. Okay. But listen to this one. This is a kind of interesting one with Trump when he's asked about
to it.
And I've had meetings on it. So, number one, that's interesting in itself, right? So, if you ever notice Trump when he's talking about classified topics like the discombobulator, the strikes that they did on Iran or anything like this, he will talk about the topic and then he will deviate to the antithesis. So with aliens, he'll be like, I'm talking to these guys, they're telling me about this object, it's flying 4 times faster. And he goes, but I don't believe in that stuff. He deviates to the antithesis, but then he goes right back at it. But I got access and I've had meetings on it. Wait, you're telling me that you have a security clearance access to where you have national security personnel, DOD personnel coming in and briefing you on unidentified aerial phenomena. We have no idea what it is, but yeah, you don't believe in it. So him, it's more of his methodology of kind of like, I think narrative seeding, one, but also kind of like, hey, here's some information, but now I'm going to deviate to lessen the impact of the information I just gave you. But then I'm going to go right back into it and tell you I know a little bit more than I'm giving on, but then I'm going to deviate away from it again.
He's also very strategic about the placement of those comments when he makes them.
Very much so.
Because he says, do I believe in it? But he's not classifying what it is.
Correct.
So to the listener, we probably have what's this, because this is what he's just kind of talking about. But to him, is it what he's going to talk about, or is it something else that he's thinking about, or is it just a different perception he has of what we think that it is? He didn't say, I don't believe in aliens. He didn't say, I don't believe in non-biologics, human biologics. He just says, I don't believe in it. But are we talking about the same it?
So this is where I think it's going to get into a kind of interesting story. But let's go back into kind of what's happening right now. So Lara Trump, about a few months ago, did a podcast where she was asked about aliens. She said, we've had this conversation with my father-in-law. He kind of was very coy about it. He led on that he has a speech prepared for it. But then she does it again 2 days ago. And I said, this is narrative seeding. She was put up to this and told to do this. But listen to what she says.
We've kind of asked my father-in-law about this because we're like, well, what do you know? Because Miranda, we all want to know about the UFOs, or we all want to know what's going on. And he played a little coy with us. And so that, of course, led us to believe, Eric and I were like, oh my gosh, if he won't even like fully tell us, maybe there's more to it. And then I have just heard kind of around that I think he's actually said, I think my father-in-law's actually said it, that there is some speech that he has that I guess at the right time, and I don't know when the right time is, he's gonna break out and talk about, and it has to do with maybe some sort of extraterrestrial life, so to speak.
So does the president act as if he believes there are UFOs and that this is going to be some momentous announcement, or is it just, a casual observation that there might be something out there?
It's a good question. I mean, he's kind of been very cool about it. Whenever I've heard this come up about this possible speech, and when Eric asked him, he just knowing him as well as I do, the way he says things, they make a difference sometimes, and he's been a little different about this one. So it makes me personally think that there's something that he knows that the rest of us don't know, and so I'll let people determine.
Now, what do you think she's talking about there?
Well, she kind of classified exactly what his behavior was. We're talking about. She goes, he played a little coy with us, So and I agree. He is, evasive on the way he answers these things. Now, when we talked about this last, and she made these statements, if you would ask me, what do you think she's talking about, reference this speech, I think it would have been something similar to the post that he dropped on Truth today.
Well, and that was the next one I was going to bring up.
Yeah, I would have thought that was essentially going to be the essence of his speech. But now that he dropped that part already, it makes me feel like it's going to be that plus a little bit more. And what's that little bit more going to be?
Well, so number one, he was asked by Peter Ducey, because you got to remember, Barack Obama came out earlier this week and was asked the question. He said, yes, aliens are real.
And we're going to talk about that again, because that plays into the black pill narrative of something that's going on right now.
But Peter Ducey asked him today. Listen to this.
Something that got a lot of attention this week. Barack Obama said that aliens are real. Have you seen any evidence of non-human visitors to Earth?
Well, he gave classified information.
So I want you to notice a few different things, being Mr. Investigator and being able to read people very, very well. So Peter Ducey asked this question, and watch, he doesn't crack a smile. He doesn't put a grin on. Okay. Stone face. But then watch when he's asked about it.
Attention this week. Barack Obama said that aliens are real. Have you seen any evidence of non-human visitors?
Look at his eyes. Have you seen any evidence of non-human visitors? And he goes up and to the right. Up. What is that? That's going into your memory to remember something. But look at his emotion, stone cold.
He gave classified information. He's not supposed to be doing that.
So aliens are real.
Well, I don't know if they're real or not. I can tell you, he gave classified information. He's not supposed to be doing that. He made a big mistake. He took it out of classified information. No, I don't have an opinion on it. I never talk about it. A lot of people do. A lot of people believe it. Do you believe it, Peter?
Well, the president can declassify anything that he wants to. So
Well,
if you want to make an announcement,
I may get him out of trouble by declassifying.
I may get him out of trouble by declassifying. He's telling you right there.
Well, here, bring up the video real quick, because I want you to show something, because this is something we pay attention to as detectives. Go back to the beginning and have it on mute. And I want you to pay attention to the way he answers with his body language. So if just rewind it to the beginning of the clip and look at his head, because there's two ways humans answers: no and yes. He double confirms it there. And at the beginning, you see him, he goes, when he's being asked the question.
We'll go back to the beginning. Yep, right there.
You see right there? You see the nod?
Wink at his eyes and nod in his head. Yep.
Those are the yeses. So when we're interviewing people, now granted, there's a lot that goes into it. This is, very, isolated to a particular part of the conversation, but you establish the baseline. But a lot of times people will lie to you verbally, But if you're paying attention to their physical cues, they're telling you the truth. Like,
Yeah, that
are you gonna tell me that, you know, we know these drugs belong to you, and as I'm saying that to you, you're like, you're doing this, you know, like you're saying yes to me while I'm telling you, and I go, so why don't you tell me the truth? And then you say, but they're not mine. But you just already told me the last 4 seconds, yes, this is mine. You know, hey, we know you know where the body's at. We know you're afraid to tell us. And they're like, yeah. So you got to tell us. Listen, I didn't got nothing to do with it. And so Trump is notorious for answering with body cues. And I don't know if he does it on, like, he allows himself to do it on purpose or what, but you see the acknowledgement that's there. Now, you saw who reposted this today, right?
Well, I saw that Rapid 47 did.
Yes.
But I haven't really been on X. I've been live streaming on my other show.
Right,
so
after you read this, I'll bring it up again, but I'll bring it up with a certain person and what they said, and you're going to love it.
All right. So Trump, then a few hours later on True Social, 7:13 p.m. Central, post this. Based on the tremendous interest shown, I will be directing the Secretary of War and other relevant departments and agencies to begin the process of identifying and releasing government files related to alien and extraterrestrial life, unidentified aerial phenomena, UAP, and unidentified flying objects, UFOs, and any and all other information connected to these highly complex but extremely interesting and important matters. Now, anybody doesn't know, in 2020, in December of 2020, when Donald Trump was getting ready to leave the White House, he went out there and pushed through an executive order giving all relevant agencies 180 days to declassify and release all information pertaining to unidentified aerial phenomena. The wording matters. Number one is the agencies never did that. It's been taking years just to get them to do anything. In this one, he words it differently. He says, related to alien and extraterrestrial life, unidentified aerial phenomena, and unidentified flying objects, and any and all information connected to these highly complex and extremely interesting and important topics. So this is different than anything he's done before. Now, I talk about seeding the narrative, and I think that, you know, if you wanted to announce this to the world, when's the best time you would do that?
Right before the State of the Union, or at the State of the Union?
Or at the State of the Union. I'm just saying, is everything is leading up to this right now. And don't get me wrong, it feels like they need a big distraction.
Well, with that, this is who reposted it.
Yeah.
Kirill Dmitriev, and he writes, he puts the little UFO emoji, as predicted, aliens for the season's grand finale. Maybe Obama is one, along with the EU and UK leadership. That would explain their work to undermine Western civilization from within.
Wow. that pins on a lot of different conspiracy theories, does it not?
Dude, he fully committed to it with that post. This is just not a regular person, folks. This is what's he, the envoy?
He's a special envoy to Vladimir Putin, special economic envoy to Vladimir Putin. He briefs Vladimir Putin every day.
I mean, listen, he didn't hold back, bro. Maybe Obama is one, along with the EU and the UK leadership.
So I can't go out without playing something else then. Right? Like, give me 1 second. Let me pull this up. Now I got to play this because this is the general. And guys, words matter. Listen to what General Flynn says to me on this show.
Oh my God, what he'll be able to discover. And frankly, I already knew a lot. I already knew a lot of the things that I wanted to dig into and I wanted to shut down or expose. Okay? And then of course, you know, now do I work with the president to maybe hold certain people or certain institutions accountable, right? They couldn't have that. Couldn't have that. And that's our problem. That's what I talk about in the movie. This is our problem, is that we have this extraterrestrial government that...
What? No, I want you to see how he prefaces this.
our problem is that we have this
extraterrestrial government. He says we have this extraterrestrial government. Real Dmitriev might not be too far off. You got to remember, for anybody who doesn't know who Bob Bigelow is, Bob Bigelow is he was like Microtel and all of those. He owned hotels for a long time, became a multi-billionaire. In the 1980s, he's one of the people that funded and supported Bob Lazar to come forth. He's worked a lot with George Knapp. In the 1990s, he wanted to find out and fund all of the information for disclosure. So the original kind of UFO programs that operated under Harry Reid and the DIA were actually funded by Bob Bigelow's companies. But he created an aerospace company just to find out the secrets. And so Hal Puthoff, everybody knows these names, go in alignment with what Bob Bigelow did. Bob Bigelow told James Fox, a very reputable UFO investigator, at dinner. He said, look, they walk among us. They look just like us. James asks, are they here? And he says, they walk among us. They look just like us. David Icke has gone on this, that there's shapeshifters, that they look just like us. So there's a very good possibility that there's a lot of truth in what's being told. And then you start to get into what we're going to talk about here in a little bit, the Dolce stuff, to where reptilian aliens, they have certain characteristics where they feed on humans, not just any humans. They feed on children and babies, because the pineal gland that produces adrenochrome actually is intoxicating to them, like alcohol. And so it's like a drug for them, and they harvest it. And when you start to realize that maybe there's more to this conspiracy than meets the eye, and that the reason this is coming out now is, number one, there's a lot of thought and structure to Trump and what's happening and what's been happening behind the scenes, that there are a good race of aliens that intervened at some point in the last decade, and they basically helped to eliminate a lot of this infrastructure that was built out here, this evil that was trying to take over the planet. Then you go to the idea that, well, why didn't this evil just take over the planet? If there's these reptilian aliens living here and they're so technologically superior, why didn't they just take over the planet? Because they have far less numbers. They don't reproduce like us, and they're very limited and very few. And from what we've, what you hear through the grapevine, right, is that Trump in 2020, when he was supposedly had COVID, didn't really have COVID, he traveled most likely to what I believe Antarctica, and he met with what was called the Galactic Federation. Now, this was rumored, but kind of confirmed. So you have a 4-star Israeli general, IDF general, who is the head of all space and intelligence for the IDF. So he did all of space warfare and intelligence gathering for the IDF. His name's Jaime Ashen. And he's in his 80s, and he came out and he did an interview, and he said, I got it directly from my sources that Trump met with the Galactic Federation. And this is just a group of 3 alien species who've been watching over humanity, protecting humanity, and that he wanted to disclose their existence, but they said humanity wasn't ready yet. And that was in 2020. I think that it's at that point where it's ready, because I think what they were waiting for was technological progression, for us to get to the point to where technology is about to exponentiate and we're about to come into the realm of discovery, but also that they have to make this first contact now, because if we don't control the technology will control us, and that becomes a threat to other species or civilizations in this galaxy, or even on this planet. And so, like, in the next 2 years is that prime opportunity. So that's just why I say this is narrative seeding, because this has to come out like literally in the next 2 years. And I think that this could be the year potentially.
So let me share this story. And it's a personal experience from when I was in Iraq. This is 2003. And this is what makes me, pretty receptive to a lot of this conversation, other conversations we've had. Because like I said, I've never been the conspiracy guy. That was always my little brother. And shout out to him. He's winning the scoreboard on I told you so's, like, by a long shot. But if we rewind the clock back to 2003, United States Marine Corps infantry grunt attached to light armor reconnaissance battalion, and we're in the front lines, and we end up making taking over this like a diesel like factory. It looked like a place where they either assembled diesels together, or maybe built very large components on. But it was a large factory, probably about the size of like a middle school or something in area coverage. But it had these walls. What made it a prime location for us? It had these perimeter walls that were probably anywhere from like 16 to 20 feet. A solid protection, and then it had some high rise buildings. And when I'm saying high rise, I'm talking maybe 4 stories. So our scout snipers could go up there, and it was a great defensive posture for us for where we were at. And so we're there for a little bit, and things became routine here. And the nighttime fire attacks. If you weren't on fire watch, you lay down, you're in your sleeping bags, you're near the vehicles. We had LAVs, and then at night there you see the enemy tracer fires just flying over, and our guys would engage, and that was a nightly thing, to the point where you're just like, all right, it's just that again. You'd go back to sleep. Like, that's how routine this behavior was.
Right.
But about a week and a half to 2 weeks in, and this is early on in the war front, and so sometimes you had interpreters with you, sometimes you didn't. Like that stuff hadn't gone too consistent yet. So we would have the local populace that would come banging at these doors, Josh, just boom, 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 like that. Not aggressive, like to fight us, but desperate for something. But we couldn't understand them, and you just see, women out there, with their kids, elderly, and to us, it's rubbish. We don't understand them. And so we start having these dreams. And when I say we, I'm talking about not just me. Like, wake up in the morning and all of us kind of looking at each other like, I just had this crazy dream, bro. And you're like, like some arms came out of the ground. Yeah. And then did this. And then the other guy and did this to you. And then the other guy, bro, we all had the identical dream. And so this happens about 2-3 nights. And this is what the dream was. We're sleeping. And while we were sleeping, these hands came out of the ground, grabbed us while we were in our bags, and were trying to pull us into the ground. And you're sitting there trying to grab your weapon system, because we sleep with it, right next to us. And you're just being pulled into the ground. And then you would wake up. Again, all of us having this. You're talking, sometimes, one of the nights upwards of like maybe 8-9 guys, but in the smallest count, maybe 4 or 5 guys. And we're just kind of like, what the heck is this about? Now let's fast forward a few weeks. We finally end up getting a translator. First thing they have this guy do during one of the daytimes is make contact with, one of the leaders from that town. And what they were telling us, the reason that people were so adamant to get inside was, this wasn't just a diesel factory. Under this place is a prison. And they were trying to get our attention because one of the buildings there that had all this shrubbery pushed against it, it was all dry, dead shrubbery. Well, because they knew from, people that gave them information that if you move all that shrubbery out of the way, there's these big hatch doors that take you down into the prison. And so this is being communicated. The intel guys are doing their thing. They have some of the heavy machinery go and move the shrubbery there. And they were right. But the thing is, it was too late. What the Republican Guard had did was they flooded all the prisoners that were down there. They drowned everybody before they left and covered it up. So we're literally on top of a burial, essentially, of these guys that were down there. But atrocities like that actually weren't so rare, whether you saw them or you heard about them. But the part of the story that never got answered to me was, how in the world do so many different men have the identical dream all at the same time if there's not some connection of consciousness?
Well, there was, and it was very, very real. The experience that you were having was most likely like spirits or souls grasping at you, probably for help, or maybe something even worse. I don't know. But I look at the paranormal and the UFO stuff as very, very similar, definitely not separate. I mean, it's all in the same in the same framework. But that's a crazy experience. You never told me that one.
I got some more we'll share throughout these shows that we go through. That it's I'm telling you, and the reason is I've never been the person to believe in that stuff, man.
Yeah.
It's just not, why am I receptive to, UFOs or UAPs? Well, that goes back to, and I've shared this story with you, 96, 97, junior, senior year of high school. I grew up with, all, like most of us did around our age, watching Top Gun. So very familiar with jets, very familiar, with the capabilities that some of these jets had. And I'm looking up into the sky and it's like satellite height. So I know it's not a jet, or any equipment that they've disclosed to us. And, satellite has this kind of trajectory that it does, but I see this thing and then all of a sudden it's like curving this way and curving that way, doing these formations way up there that I know a satellite can't do that. And two, the speed, even though it only looks so fast here, at that altitude, how much distance it's covering, we don't have that technology.
So on December 28th, 2007 was my last time out to sea in the United States Navy. We left on, I think it was a Thursday or a Friday, and we were going just to do some run-up exercises, and we were going out for a few days. But we didn't go out far. We just went out to the international water line, which is like 100 miles off the coast of San Diego. So you still had cell reception. And I'm out there, and I'm on port side midship, smoking area, and having a smoke, and there's probably 30 people out there because you still had cell reception. So people are out there with their flip phones, their razors, right? And they're trying to get a cell connection to talk to their wives or whatnot. And I'm just like this, and I'm watching something. And DC1, one of the guys there, he goes, "What are you doing, Reed? You watching UFOs again?" And I'm like, "Yep." And he's like, "Oh, get out of here." I'm like, "No, right there." And everybody on the deck looked up and they're like, "What the hell?" They're like, "That's just satellites." And it was 3 satellites. It looked like 3 satellites moving like this. And I said, "Watch." All of a sudden, from the next direction over, 3 more came like this, and they crossed the same time and just jumped in formation and started moving to the point where calls were going up to the bridge on the ship. The ship was calling out to NORAD, to Andrews, and saying, "What is up there?" And they're like, "We don't have anything on radar. We don't know what you're talking about." And he's like, "This is in space." And they're like, "We don't know what it is." And so this was interesting because it was 6 objects. New Year's Eve in San Diego that year, 6 objects were spotted over the Pacific Ocean that came up on the shoreline, videotaped by multiple different people flying in formations as a UFO sighting. That really happened.
It is. And so to bring us to this opening part of the conversation, as we're 48 minutes in, but this is the way it works. Before we get to Dolce and continue this conversation on aliens, we need to address what's happening right now in real time. And obviously you saw the post that we showed you guys of Trump that he put out on Truth Social. Now, did Obama force Trump's hand? Is Obama controlled? And they made Obama say that statement so Trump could then have, the reason to do that. All those conversations are open and all plausible. But the one thing that's happening right now is you have, and it's always the same damn people, the same black pillars, the same anti-Trump, anti-MAGA crowd that are come out, and they're trying to seed the narrative that this is a distraction. Trump is trying to protect himself from the Epstein files. So this is why they're doing it. They're distracting us with aliens. And I haven't seen a lot of good people that are like, yeah, it's a distraction, because you don't want to think and you let them grab you emotionally. And so one of the things that I've been telling people is, have we gotten the full disclosure of Epstein yet? The answer to that is no. They've told us that there's more. So why would you do the distraction now if there's more? It makes no sense, because it's going to be readdressed later. And we know the worst part hasn't came yet. So you would save a real distraction for then. And in my theory here, and I think we'll probably align here, if not the whole way, somewhat, Josh, is before we can get to the part of Epstein that you've kind of already, and same thing with Game Tech have shared, we're talking atrocities that go beyond satanic rituals. We're talking about the cruel science and like the weird shit. Well, if they were to come out and show that stuff with Epstein right now, people would be like, what? No, why? But
so it would be too far down the rabbit hole. You have, like we said, you have to set the narrative and seed the narrative for all of this stuff.
So if you came out and you did a soft drip disclosure on aliens and UAP and this technology that exists and started getting that conversation there and getting everybody up to speed on what this stuff is and non-human biologics and this DNA and genetic, mutations, and people were like, oh, and then after that, you brought in that final chapter of Epstein. People are educated now to understand it.
Yep. So number one about the Epstein stuff, I know there's a lot of black pillars out there. Obviously today, Andrew Mountbatten Windsor was arrested. He wasn't arrested for raping 15-year-old girls or Virginia Guffrey's death or any of that stuff. No, he was arrested because he leaked classified information to Jeffrey Epstein. But also, Thomas Pritzker has resigned. Brad Karp, Catherine Rumeller, Casey Wasserman all resigned. Miroslav Lashak, as well as the former Prime Minister of Norway, have been arrested. That's 3 arrests and multiple resignations from the Epstein files. Then we watch Les Wexner get disposed by Congress to where his lawyer whispers in his ear, not his lawyer, his handler whispers in his ear, if you answer another, I will kill you if you answer another fucking question with less than 5 or with more than 5
More
words.
than 5 words.
Right. And so I want people to understand that Les Wexner, he showed his hand today, is that he is not in control of whatever this power structure is over him. That he is, so it goes back to the idea that I was saying that Epstein is an intermediary financial handler. They put Epstein with people who are very wealthy and rich, either in criminality or people they want to use. Remember when Patrick Byrne said that all billionaires are recruited by intelligence agencies? Well, once you get recruited, Epstein is that guy that comes in there and ensures that you are financially taken care of and that everything is, all your ducks are in a row and that the right compromise is levied upon you. Les Wexner is not running anything. The people over top of him are the ones you should be concerned about. And what his handler just said to him today during a congressional deposition that those congressmen heard directly, you should be concerned about that because that's a person of immense power that is being controlled by somebody else, and that's the Rothschilds, and we'll get into that part of it. But I want people to also see that this is not going unnoticed, that people are being prosecuted for what's coming out in the Epstein files, and I think that that's a good indication of potentially what's to come. Because number one is Catherine Rumeller. She used her power as White House counsel during the Obama administration to get the Rothschilds out of a tax case of over $45 million of back-owed taxes. And so that right there is criminality, even though the statute of limitations has passed. So that is just one part of it. Now, let's go into Epstein and let's talk a little bit more. I've written a lot of different articles on all of this, but there's one part that I want to put out there, okay? And it's just a different perspective on the whole alien thing, okay? And this perspective is really, really important because I truly do believe that some people in the elite class believe exactly what this guy is about to tell you. Listen to this.
We can't capture it. We can't attack it. We can't do anything about it. It has total dominion over our skies if it wants to. It shows up when it wants to, when it wants to. We can't predetermine this. We cannot control them. There's nothing, we have no power over them, right?
Right.
Demonstrably, we have no power over them, which means we have no sovereignty, which is a major problem for the US government. Disclosure is a problem for them because they would have to come out and say, sorry, guys, we don't control the skies.
Right.
They do. In fact, they probably control the oceans. In fact, we're not so sure about underground either, right? We control like about this much here.
Very thin layer.
And only if they don't show up and bomb us for some reason, right? Or land on our thin layer and abduct our citizens or something. So there's no possibility of an agreement with them, number one. So they cannot protect us on a legal basis for sure, but they also on a technological basis cannot defend us. We don't know where they come from. We can't invade their territory.
Right.
All ideas of warfare go out the window.
Yeah, we have no map of where they operate.
No, we have.
Okay. Have you ever watched Three Body Problem?
I have.
And what happened there? You had a highly intelligent, advanced race that sent some basically autonomous protons that created artificial intelligence supercomputers to the world. And they did what? They sabotaged science so humanity would not progress. I want people to start thinking about science over the course of the last 100 years. It has absolutely been suppressed immensely so that we could not develop. But then I want you to start thinking about the global elite. They talk about how they serve someone or something. You get this all throughout Hollywood, right? Bob Dylan talking about the crossroads, talking about how he serves the grand commander, maybe of this world and of another. We like to think that that's maybe Satan or Lucifer, but what if it's something else entirely? What if that's just how we perceive it ideologically in society, but what if it is a extraterrestrial race that lives hundreds of thousands of years? What if it is a highly advanced and superior technological race that is on this planet that is controlling people or even replacing people? Now, I'm going to go conspiratorial on this one.
What, do you want me to play that 3-minute clip that sets up this stuff?
Well, let me jump in real quick with this part. You ever heard of the Black Eye Club?
Yes, I have.
Okay. Let me ask you, how does that make any sense whatsoever? You ever notice how people go into the Black Eye? So there'll be one day they're completely normal, and then next thing you know, they're in the Black Eye Club. And when they're in the Black Eye Club, they're completely different. They shift and change, like their personality. Tom Massey. Look at Tom Massey. One day, Tom Massey's this nerd from MIT. The next thing you know, he's like clean shaven. His wife's dead, and now he's got a new one, right? Something's wrong with that situation. And even Trump came out and said, that's not the same Tom Massey. Joe Biden, different earlobes. Looks like he's wearing a mask. Kamala Harris got a big old flap here. Sometimes you see the sharp, jagged teeth. What if the Black Eye Club was not what we thought it was? So,
well, one more to add to that, because she's been in the news lately, Savannah Guthrie.
That's right.
There's clips out there where she smiled and you literally see her teeth shapeshift.
And maybe there's reasons why things are happening.
And we're not talking pixelations. We're not talking like a camera frame issue. We're talking about people going and grabbing it off their site and be like, what the hell was that?
Yeah. So I want to propose something here, is that, have you ever seen the television? We talked about the Stargate SG-1. Okay. You need to watch the whole series. I've watched it like 10 different times, but there's a Stargate movie. And then there's the Stargate series that came out a few years later. So Stargate movie was 1998, 1999. Stargate series was 2003. And Richard Dean Anderson, MacGyver's the guy in the series, where Kurt Russell's the one in the movie. In the movie, they travel to a planet through a Stargate called Abydos, and they find the heritage of the Egyptian people living there. And an alien lands on the pyramid, and he's in his spaceship. They're called the Goa'uld. And he's a gray alien who's inhabiting the body of a 14-year-old kid. Okay. And they steal the children, right? They steal the children in the movie. Well, when they were going to do the series, the Sci-Fi Channel was the one who brought them up. You have to have someone produce it. What producing really means is like, who's going to finance the show, right? So this is who's financing the show. And so they had to reach out there. Now, they wanted to utilize NORAD. They wanted to use Air Force uniforms and be as accurate as possible. So they reached out to the United States Air Force's entertainment division, kind of public communications division. And the U.S. Air Force came out and said, sure, absolutely. We're going to actually support this show. We'll help finance it and produce it a little bit, but you have to make a few changes. They said, you know that gray alien that you had in the movie? That's got to change. Instead, what we want you to do is we want you to change the main alien into a serpent that can crawl in through the back of your neck. It wraps around your spine and suppresses your consciousness and takes over your body as the host. Now, let me ask you this. If you wanted to get direct access to the brain, would it be pretty easy to just pull the eyeball out?
Yes, it would. Well, it wouldn't be easy. It would be the easiest way.
Easiest way without any type of intrusive surgery, right? And if all you have to do is put a little larva in there, maybe it's just a little larva that goes in there, crawls inside the eye, and then grows inside the brain over time, wraps around the spinal cord, suppresses the consciousness, takes over the host body.
You know what?
Maybe, Alpha. Do you know how many medical documented reports of, did you know that in the 1900s, there's a lot of medical reports that came out about how people with different blood types, O negative blood types or negative blood types, could not mate, have children with people with positive blood types, and then there was a big problem. You had to get a special shot, a K shot. Did you know that there's no medical reports of that prior to 1890? And no medical journals ever anywhere in the world. Never had that problem before. Only happened starting in the 1900s. Now, let me ask you this. What if human beings were genetically altered at some point in our recent history? And the reason I say that we are altered is because what if there was a parasite or some type of parasitic alien extraterrestrial, something of this nature, or maybe even interdimensional, who knows?
We're talking about the RH bloodline here, or?
Yeah. That could hijack a human being, right? But it was primarily done through blood type. And then highly advanced civilization, they realized this and they said, hey, we got to genetically alter ourselves. So they add a rhesus gene into our blood, which gives us the positive mechanism. And then civilization restarts again, right? But in order to do that, you would have to have a new generation of human beings actually come about, right? Like you would have to ensure that this virus, this parasite doesn't infect you. Well,
let me add a little something there, because this is stuff people could go research, so they can understand that this conversation is not just, conspiracy theory. And we talked about this on the space last night, but one of the things that they found out with pregnant women that had the RH negative, I believe it is, blood type is, and there's probably some women that, probably have this blood type and been pregnant before in the chat. But when they have RH negative blood, they have that first child, and sometimes there's complications, but that first child, usually that pregnancy is successful. However, when they go for the second pregnancy or the third, if they don't get this shot that you're talking about, they have complications with those surgeries because the body sees that especially if the baby inside has that RH blood in it, the body doesn't see that as something natural and starts to attack it.
Yep.
And this is why you get complications, into those pregnancies. So there's this shot that you get. So to the conversation, how could the human body look at something and be like, this isn't natural if it's a blood type?
Well, have you ever heard of the all of the theories on maybe civilization isn't really as we thought it was? A lot of this is just made up stories. Think about it like this: the Tataria stuff, right? Is that in the late 1800s, early 1900s, there was an immense amount of orphanages around the world. Where the hell were all the parents? Not only that, at the World Fairs, there was what we call incubator babies, new incubators to raise your babies, but the babies had no parents. They would go immediately into orphanages. Why? What if this was a post-apocalypse humanity that was coming out of it? They destroyed this old world because it became infected by whatever this was. And that whatever it was, this parasitic, extraterrestrial, interdimensional, whatever it was, could latch on to certain blood types, more susceptible to certain blood types. What did they call, you ready for this one? What did they call the ruling elite? What do they call their blood types? Blue bloods. Why do they call them blue bloods?
Reptilian.
That's right. But they're called blue bloods. They're called the blue bloods. They're the leaders. So start thinking in this type of sense and term when we start to go over this. And a lot of this is conspiracy theory. And I can go in deeper, the Tataria thing. Listen, the population in the year 1900 was 1 billion people on the planet estimated. Okay. Now, in the 52 years in the beginning of the 20th century, we lose over 540 million people in this world due to war, famine, disease, and communism. Now, here's the problem. There's over 9 billion people on the planet today. In order for there to be 9 billion people on the planet today, and if we had 1 billion people on the planet in 1900, those billion people would all have to have 8 kids. Those kids would have to have 8 kids. Those kids would have to have 8 kids. Those kids would have to have 8 kids. And those kids would have to have 8 kids. And those kids would have to have 8 kids generationally down the line. It's mathematically impossible for the population to be 9 billion people today. So it's either that the population was a lie, an estimated lie back in the year 1900. That many people didn't die during 1900, or our population really isn't 9 billion people. I don't know. But when you start to look at the Tataria theory, it kind of fits in there and slides in there that, hey, this is a realm of possibility. Now, that's just conspiracy theory. Let's get into more things that right now
let me
have
play
more
this.
pertinence.
So let me play this clip. It's about a 3-minute, 3-second clip, folks. And this is going to set up the conversation for a place that I want to get me and Josh to go. But he's like, bro, did you not just listen to a damn thing you just heard? You still want to go? So here's the clip, folks.
So the Andromedans tell you that the Alpha Draconians are here now. Where?
There are 1,833 of them that have been living underground between 100 and 200 miles beneath the surface. They've been here, some of them have been here a long, long time. They have lifespans that are thousands of years. They're carnivorous. They are not friendly to mankind, at least the ones that are here.
Are you saying carnivorous, they eat humans?
Yes. And they won't eat a dead human. It has to be alive at the time of the killing. Their preference is children. And we've been told, you shouldn't talk about that. There are other people say, well, you better not talk about the reptilians. Well, bull. Why not? According to the Andromedans, they're responsible for 31,712 children disappearing in the last 25 years from the United States. These children were food. And I'm supposed to just shut up and not say anything about it because people don't want to hear it? That's tough. That's tough. Westchester County, in the last 5 years, 3,000 children in Westchester County, New York, have vanished without a trace. Where are they going? Why are we allowing this to happen? And why should people stay in denial about it?
Now, how are they able to do this? How are they able to do it? How are they able to come up out of this from underground and do it? Or do they have...
There are tunneling systems everywhere. They're being helped by the Greys, and also there are groups within the higher echelon that are actually helping them acquire this.
So human beings are abducting the kids and getting them to the Greys to in turn give them to the Alpha Draconians?
That's right. That's part of the deal. They won't come up as long as we feed them down there. You understand? It's about human beings selling themselves out. The echelon attitude here, the needs of the few outweigh the needs of humanity. And sorry, that just isn't right. But it's going to have to be humanity that's going to rise up and take the stand. You're just going to have to turn off your televisions. They're going to have to get in their car. They're going to have to fire everybody in Washington, D.C. that knows and does nothing. And they're going to have to do something. This apathy's got to end. Otherwise, the way we live is going to end. Period. I mean, that's the bottom line. And I'm not coming from a fear space. I'm really quite angry about the apathy and the fact that, when people give lectures and try to tell us, people want to stand up and fight with them. Look at what's happening around us. The indications are everywhere. Everywhere. The truth is now an obscure thing. The lie is the norm. There's something wrong here. What's wrong with this picture? Sorry, I'm getting crazy.
No, you're not. You're expressing.
Well, I'll see if we can actually get him on the show. But yeah, a lot of his earlier stuff was exposing a lot of this. And so one of the interesting
that was
things,
1990, bro.
That's right. And by the way, when he talks about them eating it, this is interesting because Alex Collier had no relationship to a guy by the name of Phil Schneider. But him and Alex Collier say very similar things about these reptilians and what they do. and they prefer to eat children. They prefer to harvest a pineal gland that is adrenalized, which is called adrenochrome. And this was mentioned all the way back in the 1990s and 1980s. This isn't something new that came out with Pizzagate people. And that these reptilians actually ingest that adrenochrome, and it's like alcohol for them. Okay. Now, interesting enough, I was talking to Dr. Michael Salla on a podcast a few years ago, and we were talking about this, and he says, listen, he goes, these elite families like the Rothschilds and stuff like that, they run one of the largest child and human trafficking operations. He goes, you know why Hillary Clinton wanted to take a village from Haiti? You know what she did with those kids, right? And I said, no. And he goes, they take them down to Antarctica. And in Antarctica, they get on these spaceships, and then they're sold off into slavery or as food to extraterrestrial races. And then my brother was on the show, and he says, what do they use for currency? He says, DNA. DNA is the blockchain of the universe. Think about it. Every DNA of every individual is completely unique unto that person's self. So it has various different attributes as an expression of the universe. It's like a blockchain in itself. And that is the currency of the universe. So this stuff has been reported by many people for many, 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 many years. And I think that there's way more truth to it than meets the eye. Here's an interesting piece of the puzzle, and this is more recent. Catherine Austin Fitts of Solari, her and one of her research assistants over the last few years have been trying to track down. Remember when Donald Rumsfeld, a few days before September 11th, was talking about the $2.1 trillion missing from the Pentagon, and they're going to begin the audit on September 11th. And it just so happens that plane, missile, flew right into the audit section and the auditor died of the Pentagon. I mean, crazy, right? They wanted to track down all this money to see where it was kind of going. And over 1 year's time, they started looking at government contracts and following the money. They found $21 trillion over the last 25 years spent by the U.S. military. Are you ready for this? On underground military bases and complexes.
Dumbs
that are not mapped anywhere, that are not being used properly by the U.S. military, not inhabited by the U.S. military.
So let's revisit a conversation real quick, because I remember seeing this, and everything that I was coming across seemed like it was accurate. So let me ask you this. During kind of my red pill awakening 2019, 2020, I start to hear about these dumps for the first time, which takes us into 2020, 2021. And a lot of the Anons and digital soldiers at that time started bringing stuff that caught my attention. And there was very specific locations all around the world where at the same depth, there was what we classify as an earthquake, but it was always the same depth, and it was always the same magnitude.
Mm-hmm.
And
10 kilometers.
10 kilometers. Thank you. And it was always the same magnitude. Now, what was interesting is, some people they were trying to write it off as, just natural events. But there was one thing, and nobody was able to dispel this, and it was actually recorded, was in one of these locations. And was it Venezuela too? I don't want to misquote it. This is years ago. 6 years ago now. But I want to say it was South America, that you had it at that depth, the 10 kilometers and that and that magnitude. But then there were two separate ones in the sky. And people were like, okay, what the hell is that? So a lot of people said, well, maybe it's a software error or recording error. And other people said, or maybe something was trying to leave.
Possibly. I think that since the Trump administration came back in the military operation, whatever they're doing, they have the capability to fight back with this, whether it's in alignment with some type of extraterrestrial race, which I actually think it is. And that if this presence actually existed on this planet, before they come out with disclosure, they would have to eradicate whatever this evil is on the planet. And from, people that kind of conspiracy level range things, what they've said is that this evil that's on the world, in the planet, has been eliminated. And this is why the globalists and the deep state are failing, is because basically they lost. And everything right now is just moving to a system to where their system just completely is eradicated because their main commanders, right, have been eradicated. There's also another kind of weird part of all of this.
And let me just bring up this map. This is one that has circulated social media a lot. So some of you have probably seen this before, and I'm sure you've seen it too, Josh. But this is a map that circulates all the time. If for those of you who can't read it, it says government, underground facilities and tunnels, subterranean bases, tube shuttles, tunnels, underground nuclear test sites, nuclear weapons facilities. It looks like it says Uranus wiring or milling. It's just kind of interesting.
No, Urus Minor, which is a constellation. If you actually look at that mapping, it maps out the constellation of Orion and Ursa Minor.
Well, look at that. Because the other thing is, I saw this same map overlaid, and it landed with a lot of places that are national parks, as well.
Well, and you know the whole conspiracy theory about national parks, right? With Teddy Roosevelt and the early 1900s. Listen, there is something on this planet, for sure. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. There is something on this planet that's not human, that has highly technologically advanced technology, and is far more superior and intelligent than us. Now, whether that's being eradicated or not, I don't know. I believe it is. I think it is. And if we're coming to a point of disclosure, that'd be really interesting. But let's talk a little. I mean, have you ever heard of a girl by the name of Amy Eskridge?
I actually have, but I want to show her one more thing because I know that there's people in the audience that this shit's too crazy, guys. No, you guys are tripping, because we got a large audience right now on all these platforms. I'm going to bring up something from military.com. This is an article. Army is spending $500 million to train soldiers to fight underground.
Did you know that there's a lot of major cities in the world that are built on top of massive cavern systems?
I'm starting to learn that, especially
Seattle, Portland, Los Angeles, New York City,
Hollywood.
And then Hollywood. Well, yeah, Los Angeles. Yeah. And then you go international, France, London, Rome, Istanbul. One of the largest cavern systems was just recently found in, I want to say China, and it has the capacity for over 2 million people to live comfortably inside of it. And it was carved out, they say, thousands of years ago. Bullshit. Just saying. There's something much more interesting going on this planet. And I think over the next few years, we're going to find out.
If you guys go research some of the DARPA stuff, there's a lot of subterranean facilities that DARPA has.
Mm-hmm. Now, this is kind of where we tie into Jeffrey Epstein, but also we can bring up Archuleta Mesa, Mesa Verde, Dulce. So number one is Epstein. There's a lot of things that Epstein did, but he was very interested in finding Atlantis. And this was actually not just him, but everybody in the elite class. They spent a lot of money trying to excavate and find out about the ancient civilization. Very similar to kind of progressing what the Nazis were doing. The Nazis had a whole regiment of the SS that traveled around the world looking for advanced civilizations, technology that was buried. And the Rothschilds and Epstein and multiple other family bloodlines have sought these technologies out. Now, here's the thing, is we know almost certainly that they never found it. The reason we know they never found it is because we're all still here today. The world isn't depopulated. We're actually winning in this fight. We have rights and freedoms, and the planet is kind of moving forward, right? So we know they didn't win. We know that they don't have this advanced technology. And I've laid out, by the way, how the deep state and the cabal, they don't have this technology. And actually, I gave credence, I think, the other day to the Dick Cheney to this. And I don't like Dick Cheney. I don't like him as far as I can throw him. But for everybody to understand, Dick Cheney is said to be that one person that controlled kind of the accessibility to the USAPs, the unacknowledged special access programs of all this hidden technology, that he wouldn't even let George Herbert Walker Bush into those programs, right? And here's the thing is we know Bill Clinton, John Podesta, Hillary Clinton, Barack Obama, they were trying to infiltrate these black programs and get that technology out. Even to this day, Two to Stars Academy with Tom DeLonge, John Podesta is one of their political advisors that is progressing to try to get disclosure and all this information out there, which tells you they don't have it. And I think that's really, really important that other people have it, and the other people that have it haven't used it for evil against the world as far as we know, because if they had an agenda like a new world order or one world government and depopulation, they would have already have done it. Okay? So to me, that's kind of a perspective.
Yeah, they would have definitely saw that they were losing the reins and deployed it, whether they wanted to or not. I agree that they would have deployed it. Let's take this shot so this way we can still run an ad at the end of the show. To do an ad right now. Do you want to check yours to see if that one populated, or do you still want to save that one towards the end?
Oh, I got it right here. We'll see if they let me do it. I know that they should because it's on my channel, but let me go ahead and do this one real quick. They can cancel your accounts, freeze your cards, decide what you're allowed to buy, say, or support. Big banks and financial institutions have total control, and they use it. That's why financial independence matters now more than ever. Introducing Rumble Wallet, a wallet built for real freedom. With Rumble Wallet, you control your money, not a bank, not a government, not a tech company. Buy digital assets like Tether, Tether Gold, and Bitcoin in one secure place. No permission, no middlemen, no cancel button. And when you want to support the creators you actually believe in, you can use Rumble Wallet app to directly tip content creators securely, instantly, and without interference. This isn't a credit line they can shut off. It's your wallet permanently. Yours to protect your future, yours to protect your family. When the system fails, when institutions turn on their own people, financial sovereignty is the difference between security and vulnerability. Rumble Wallet isn't about politics. It's about freedom, ownership, and protecting what's yours. So take control today. Download Rumble Wallet now and step away from big banks for good. True ownership, true protection, true financial freedom. And that's over at wallet.rumble.com.
And with that, folks, just a solid, one, we very much appreciate very large audience right now watching on all the different platforms. Help us out. Share this out right now. Take this moment to hit that little arrow, share it on your feeds, hit the thumb, hit the heart if you haven't already. And if you're a new person that's just coming and catching me or Josh, subscribe to the channels. They are free, but please at least do us a solid and hit the heart and hit the thumb. And with that, Emerald Med, everybody, another great company that we have over here with Rumble, and that always has a funny story. Thank you, Brad. I want to tell you about something that's not well known, but it's incredibly powerful. It's called Aceman, and it's a compound from aloe vera that massively supports your body's stem cell production, stem cell health, and immune system function. That matters because your body replaces about 1% of its cells every day. As we age or have health issues, we produce cells less efficiently. The thing is, almost no aloe products have Aceman because it breaks down after harvest. And you can't get enough from eating raw aloe because the aloe's laxative compound. However, Emerald Med created a stabilized Aceman supplement with the laxative compound removed. It's called Aloe RX. They made it in pharmaceutical pharmacies, and now it's available to the public. I want to explain the value of Aloe RX. Stem cell injections can have amazing results, but can cost between $10,000 to $40,000 a treatment. Aloe RX isn't the same thing as stem cell injections, but it massively supports your own body's stem cell production for less than $100. You can literally give your body this for 16 years for the same price as one stem cell treatment. For people who don't need something extreme like stem cell injection, but want to help their body significantly, this is arguably the best value on the market. The longer you take it, the more compounding support you have. If you want to support a company that supports our channel, plus free speech with ads, check out Emerald Med's Aloe RX. Click the link to learn more and get 30% off Aloe RX today. And those links, you'll see them in either mine or Josh's live chats, or you'll see them down in the description of both our shows on Rumble. So if you're watching on another channel, you got to go to our Rumble channels to get access to those amazing sponsors and affiliates. So with that, Josh, we're back here onto the conversation. And I want to make sure we let people know, especially about the Dolce Base.
Yeah. So number one, in New Mexico, you have the Archuleta Mesa and then Dulce Mesa Verde. But over in the Archuleta Mesa, I think it's an Indian reservation. You have what's known as the Dolce Base. And yes, this is a real facility that the U.S. military has down there. And it's rumored that in 1979, there's something known as the Dulce Wars that went on there. And in the creation of this underground base facility, they discovered a cavern. Inside that cavern were reptilian-like aliens that killed over 56 U.S. military and other personnel, and there is very few survivors. One of the survivors, this is kind of where it gets weird, is in the 1980s, he was working in his yard, and like I think what happened is a hammer hit him in the head, is how he described it. And all of a sudden he started having all these memories, and then he meets someone in the grocery store, and they're like, "Hey, I remember you. We worked together at the DOD." And he's like, "I never worked for the DOD." And come to find out, he goes through his business records and finds that he had DOD contracts. And what did he do in the 1970s? He helped them. He was a demolitions expert and helped them basically clear out for underground military bases and complexes and sub bases. And then he started getting a lot of his memories back, and he started remembering actually being at the Dulce Wars, the Dulce base, and an alien kind of doing like this with a device on his chest where this beam came by and split him in half and took his hand out and took fingers off of his hand, which he was missing. This guy's name is Phil Schneider. And he went on the talking circuits about this. And anybody watches my conspiracy streams, I play the documentary of Phil Schneider actually giving this whole speech. The interesting thing about Phil Schneider is he never really deviated from his story. He talks about how these reptilians, they basically eat children. That children, they steal children, they eat children, they live off of children, they live deep underground on this planet. They have highly advanced technology. They control and manipulate people on the surface. That they're worshipped like gods. Same things that David Icke has said in the past. And what's more interesting about Phil Schneider is what happened to Phil Schneider. So Phil Schneider was in a wheelchair in his hotel. He was left alone. He had a catheter on. And the next day, Phil Schneider was found with his catheter around his neck, his catheter tube around his neck, strangled to death, and ruled a suicide. Now, Phil Schneider didn't have any money. Nobody was killing Phil Schneider for money or an insurance policy. There was nobody coming in and out of that facility that he was at, a motel room. Someone killed Phil Schneider, and they did it, and they were able to cover it up and make it look like a suicide. That, to me, sounds like intelligence agencies, which means that someone wanted Phil Schneider to shut up and stop talking, which brings to me credence to his story. As well as Alex Collier and many others had very correlating stories, and there was no relation within all of these people during that time. This is the 1990s. There's no internet and there's no cell phones, right? Like, these people didn't necessarily know each other. And so you have so that's what I always look for, is cross correlation of stories where there's no direct contact between these people. Like today you get, a person come up like, "I'm a whistleblower. I was on Mars with Barack Obama," right? And they'll tell this story. And then like another person who has the same story will be like, "Oh my God, like I have the same story." They're like, "Oh my God, I remember you." They'll be like, "I remember you too," because it validates their delusion. And what happened is the one person originally heard that other person's story, created their own, and now you have two people confirming a story that's just complete bullshit. That's nothing but delusion. You get that a lot in the UFO community. But there is a lot of stuff that has relevance of truth. I think that what we're talking about here tonight actually has a lot of relevance and truth. I know there's a lot of speculation. I know there's a lot of conspiracy that we're throwing into this. We're filling in gaps of things that maybe we don't understand. When I was talking about the Black Eye Club, that could have easily have been that they're putting a Neuralink chip behind their eyes so an AI can control them. I mean, one of the best theories that I've ever heard is that it's not extraterrestrials or aliens that control this planet. It's AI. And that the AI has created this false narrative that it's aliens to keep us off of its trail. I mean, that's actually very, very plausible. But, I don't know, man. It's there's a lot of theories out there, but right now you have to look at the connectivity to Jeffrey Epstein. And if anybody knows my work on Jeffrey Epstein was directly connected with massive amounts of scientists, biogenetic research. He had two different companies, the New Albany Company and fuck, I got it right here. I'm not drawing a blank right now. But both of these companies dealt with harvesting DNA from underprivileged societies of children. And my biggest thing is, why would they procure this amount of children? Over 8 million children a year go missing from the planet. And I know that's not a large percentage, but I want people to start thinking in the United States of America alone, about 1 million children go missing. 600,000 of them are found. That's about 323,000 children that are never found in the United States that go missing each year. They're not eating those children. But let me ask you this.
Just to put that in a visual perspective, you're talking 3 or 4 football stadiums full of kids.
How about this, Alpha? You're talking Tampa, Florida disappearing. You're talking about the population of Tampa, Florida disappearing overnight. Phoenix, Arizona just disappearing overnight. That is the population of, well, Phoenix may be a little bit larger, but Tampa, like 350,000 disappearing overnight. Okay. Where are these children going? When Tom Homan says that we found the children, you ever notice that they're not saying that the children are alive and healthy and well, and they're now with HHS and they're going back to their parents? You notice how when Tom Homan came out in the early 2025 and said, hey, we're finding these kids, they're not talking about how they're being recovered.
Well, that's the thing, is he's not using the word find or found. He says we've located.
Yep.
And that's an interesting term when you're talking about recovery on a person or a child, because you're right. You would the thing you hear or you even see in police reports is we recovered the child. We found them and saved them.
Yep.
It's interesting, the wordplay on those things.
It is, and Tom Homan doesn't give very much information out, as well as the Trump administration isn't showing children being reunited with their families, which, I mean, for PR, that's gold money. Why wouldn't you? We're not seeing any of that. And so that brings to me indications of, like, Hillary stole a village. What did she do with those children? Epstein was procuring children for wealthy financiers. What was he doing with these children? Not all of it was human sex trafficking. There's a lot of it that was going into biogenetic research. Did you know that Epstein had various different conversations with geneticists about hybridization? What if we could get alien DNA and produce a hybrid genetic race? When you start to think about Jeffrey Epstein and his connections, what he was doing, Rothschilds, these types, he was connected to Metabiota, Ukrainian biolabs, which are autonomous zones. He was connected to human cloning experiments, baby farms. Why would you need baby farms? I want people to think about this for a second. How much money does it take to raise a baby? So to 14, 15, that is what the prime age that they would want. Even right, it costs a lot of money to raise a kid. Why did they have baby farms? Well, Josh, they were eating them. No, they were utilizing them for scientific and genetic experimentation. Like, I shit you not. And here is the problem, and why you're never going to see it, and why you were talking about this the other night. I don't know if we were talking about it on the show or not. We were talking about Massey, how Massey's like, he didn't want to go to Zorro Ranch. And you're like, that's a gotcha. And I'm like, no, you have to understand from a congressional point of view, he knows what was going on there. You have Sandia National Laboratories. You have Los Alamos National Laboratories. You have Zorro Ranch. You have Mesa Verde. You have Archuleta Mesa. You have Dolce Base right there. What was Jeffrey Epstein doing in Zorro Ranch? It was a listening outpost to spy on Sandia and on Los Alamos. You bring those scientists in, you compromise them, you get their intelligence, and you sell it out to the world. But not only that, they did genetic experimentation down there. Okay? What do we mean by that? They're going to find bodies when they excavate Zorro Ranch. They're going to find an underground facility, and I guarantee you there's going to be biomedical research that was being done in there. But here is the one fucking part that nobody's going to tell you. The reason why Massey didn't want to go to Zorro Ranch. Epstein was in connection with the Obama administration. We know this. We have Kathy Rummel, right? But we also have Regina Dugan, who is the head of DARPA, who's now over at Welcome Leap, also worked at Factory 8 at Google. Now, Epstein was also connected to Sergey Brin and Larry Page. Larry Page's wife was Susan Wachowski, who owned 23andMe. 23andMe was nothing more than a DNA honeypotting operation, which brought to life Alpha Genome, which we have with Google today. But this is the one part. Your government was directly involved in this genetic testing. Your government, the DOD, DARPA, and other governments and intelligence agencies around the world were in cahoots with Jeffrey Epstein on this biogenetic research that they were doing. And this is the taboo. So we talked about this the other night. Why are they coming out and admitting, yeah, there's a global pedophile ring that eat babies and drink their blood? Yep, you got us. Ah, shit. Now we're going to go arrest some people and we'll all just be cleared over.
Well, let me ask you this, Josh, because all sins start with good intentions, right?
Yeah.
Let's just stipulate for a moment here that there is an alien civilization that's living under the ground from us, reptilians. And they're every scary thing that's been described. And we know that they're stronger, they're faster, they got better senses. So we know that they're also advanced and they have technology. So if we try to do it a technology versus technology fight, we lose. Mm-hmm. If we try to do it reptilian versus man, we lose. So if we have that understanding, then at some point we got to say, listen, like they said in that one of the videos that we're watching, we don't really have sovereignty, that they control the skies, if they control the waters, if they control underground. But what if through good intentions, somebody said, well, what if some of their race that's defected or that we've captured, what if we made a hybrid version of them and us? So this way we had their strength and their senses and their intelligence. So that way we can now fight them and have a fighting chance to defeat them. And then that turned into something darker and more sinister.
Very plausible, very probable. And I'll tell you, if the U.S. government, DOD, was involved in super soldier creation like that, by the way, they already have genetically bred super soldiers. I'm not going to lie about that. But it's not Q Shaman, I assure you. But they already have it. You want to know why I know they have it? Because China does. China has already announced to the world that they have genetically superior super soldiers that they've bred. Guess what? The U.S. has it too. And where did they start these projects? Exactly what we're talking about. They did it in autonomous zones across the world where there is directly no congressional oversight. They do it through black budget funding, and they do it through financial intermediaries that are controlled by intelligence agencies like people like Jeffrey Epstein. And you have various different contractors that would operate as the facilitators under government contractors like Black & Veatch and Metabiota, and biolabs in Ukraine, which is completely outside of international oversight. And they would run genetic testing and experimentation, babies, kids, etc. The stuff that makes you gross to your stomach.
We just so the audience knows, and you may even have them in your family, we have a large population of combat veterans that cannot articulate timeframes in their deployments. And everybody just writes it off of, oh, it's just because that's what happens with PTSD. But these same men will come and tell you some of the most gruesome events they were on where they're not suffering from anything. These guys don't have weak stomachs for blood. These guys don't have weak stomachs to kill another human being in a fashion that's not cruel. I'm just talking about war. But yet there are gaps in time that they can't account for. And there's a lot of rumors out there that some people probably didn't realize technology that was in them because of these injections and stuff that we had. And maybe these things were deployed.
I was not always this smart in my life.
Just saying.
Did I ever tell you what happened to me in boot camp?
So
in Navy boot camp, you get off the bus, right? And we go through what's called the gauntlet. So you get your jammies. We get sweatsuits and shorts and stuff. So when we get there, and they put you in a Navy sweatshirt and they put you in Navy pants, you have to strip down naked. You do the ass test, right? Bend over. They touch your butthole, all that stuff, and they clasp your balls, make you cough. And in each one is a tent. and the tent is sequential. So you go 1 tent, 2 tent, 3 tent, 4 tent, so forth. And each one is shot, cough, all this stuff, ask you medical questions. And I go through the gauntlet and I come out and there's an Army officer and she's holding a little box with a clipboard. She goes, Seaman Reed, Seaman Recruit Reed. I go, yes. She goes, come here for a second. I said, yes, ma'am. She goes, the United States Army, along with the United States Navy, is doing a health assessment of which we will check up on you every 2 to 3 years. This is voluntary. All I need you to do is just sign right here. And I said, okay, cool. Yeah, it's just a health assessment. I sign. She opens up the box, takes something out, shoots me in the arm, and says, we'll be in touch. And I'm like, what the hell did she just give me? For the next 2 weeks, I was more sick than I've ever been before in my life. I had green goo just coming out of every orifice of my body. But then for the next 20 years, I didn't get sick. And I've told this story before, but this is true and legitimate. Actually, right here, anybody can see that.
Yep.
Navy Personnel Command.
Yeah, we all have it. Digital DD-214s.
This is my digital records. 5 years of my medical record is missing from this. First 5 years of my Navy history is not on this. So interesting enough, I'm transferring commands. I'm going to Lackland, and I get to Lackland, and my first night at Lackland Air Force Base to go to school before I go to my next command. I have my military records in my book bag, and I stopped to get a beer at a bar, and I'm getting some weird looks. It's like off Lackland. If people know that area, it's not a good neighborhood. I go out, my car was broken into. And I go to my back seat, my medical my service record is sprawled out on the back seat. And I start going through my bag, and I had a little TomTom GPS. Remember those? The little TomTom GPS?
I do.
They stole the charger cord for the TomTom GPS, my passport, and my medical record.
You're going to trip out on this, Josh. And as a matter of fact, outside of some people at the time that this happened, I'd never shared this publicly because I didn't see the relevance until you just made something click right now. I've only had my vehicle broken into one time in my entire life. My entire life. And this was as a law enforcement officers when it happened. I used to like to run at this park across my old alma mater. And I'm running there and, doing my laps, working out. And I get back to my car and I'm like, why is the door ajar? Right. Or slightly open. Right.
Yeah.
And I go in there and my wallet is on the passenger seat. Right. And there's cards that are just thrown in a mix. I'm just like, what the hell, man? Well, there was folded $40 in the money clip of the wallet, still there. Driver's license, still there. Only 2 things were taken. You want to know what they were?
What's that?
My military ID and my weapons card. That's it, man. And so, of course, I got to file a police report because, commands that you don't just tell the military, oh, I lost my ID. No, they want to know. Yeah, they want to, you better give me that damn police report, right? And so, I called, it was Riverside County Sheriff's at the time. They come out and I tell him, he's just like, well, there's no forced entry in this. And he was kind of giving me the look like, bro, did you just lose your card? He was prior military too, right? And I'm like, look,
we'll make it up for you. We'll cover it for you.
So I'm telling him, I'm like, man, look, didn't lose my card. All right. Like someone took that stuff. He's just like, yeah, but left your money. And I'm just like, listen, criminals are stupid, right? They're full-blown retards. But nonetheless, and now I'm thinking, why did they just take my ID and weapons card? The weapons card is useless. You're not going to be able to use it.
I don't know. But I can tell you one thing that my first 5 years of my medical history in the United States Navy does not exist. I've went everywhere to try to find it because I had injuries that I needed to go through the VA. Does not exist. And it's not on my digital records. And I reported that immediately after it happened to the police at Lackland. documented. So I don't know. Who knows?
Well, so until we go on site in New Mexico with the entire arsenal, so one of us will make it back, folks. One of us will make it back. What do you?
We should definitely do that. It'd be cool.
It would be cool. It would be very cool. Just throw on, get some rucksacks, get some MREs. Make sure we have a lot of batteries, some solar stuff, and you know what we should do?
What's
We
that?
should take one of Elon Starlinks, the portable Starlinks.
I got one. I got
There
one.
There we go. There we go. And like literally do a live stream, like from the freaking desert.
Let's do it.
We're gonna do that, folks. If you guys want us to do that, let us know in the comments.
We're
if
gonna
there's
become
another,
UFO and ghost hunters, guys. That's what we're gonna do.
or if there's another location you'd like us to check out, leave it in the comments. So what's your landing thoughts on Dolce, and then we'll get into the Rumble rants.
Listen, there's much more to what's going on than meets the eye. What's being uncovered right now by the Epstein files, I think, is going to be directed towards that whole satanic pedophilia, child trafficking range, and that's where they want it to end. That's why they're coming out with this admission and kind of why everything's all deviated. Zorro Ranch is a no-no. They don't want to go there because that starts to make connections to Los Alamos, to Sandia, but also DARPA and the DOD. But if that starts to come out, it does have the potential to collapse societies of the revelations that will come from this. So it's a lot of dark stuff that in human history that have been done. And these people want to cover it up at all costs, and probably even the best interest of Donald Trump to even cover it up. And I'm not lying about that, because the stuff that we're talking about is societal collapse type of shit.
So then last question, and then we'll get into our ads and the Rumble rants. What do you think Trump's going to say in that speech, man?
I think that he's going to acknowledge the topics without acknowledging. So I think that he's going to acknowledge the topics, UAPs, UFOs, extraterrestrials. I think that he's going to say that we're looking into it, investigating it. Possibly, if he does do a big one, it will be the acknowledgement of them, and that there's communications and more to come on it. But I'm not holding my breath for that one. I think that's maybe 2 years down the road. I would say 2 years down the road for that. But I think that if he does one recently, it's going to be pertaining to the truth that he put out today. And it's going to be that, hey, look, everybody's curious. We want to know. I've been briefed on this. I can't tell you at the moment, but let me get some stuff out there. Let's get declassified. You got to remember, they got to see the narrative. They have to see the narrative. So he's going to see the narrative before he comes out with full disclosure.
The only thing that I'll add, because I do agree with you, I think the actual disclosure is going to be timed later, but I think he's going to say something in addition to what he's already said that's going to allow them to check the temperature of the court of public opinion.
Mm-hmm.
He's going to say something that they're going to be able to monitor. They're going to monitor social media. They're going to monitor podcasts.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Like, they want to know, are we there yet? Like what's the conversations looking like? And I've been trying to figure out the last 2 days, what the hell could they say that is not full disclosure, but enough for them to check the temperature of what's going on? I can't figure that one out.
I think they're going to come out and say that UAPs, UFOs are real. We've been researching and investigating them for a long time. We know information, but we can't tell you more right now. I think it's going to be something like that, to where the possibility is now open, and then the D-class begins to happen. And as the D-class begins to happen, more of a story is painted, because there is another side of the story, that the Amy story, right? Amy Eskridge, where she's saying, and if you guys don't know Amy Eskridge's story, you definitely need to go check it out. She worked, her father was a NASA engineer. They had a space propulsion company. They were, working with all the top scientists in NASA and all of this. She would do these conferences. She would talk about anti-gravitics, of how it's already been created by NASA and suppressed multiple times over. And then she just one day commits suicide in her backyard. But this was after she came out and talked about how the government's been in contact with these time travelers called P52s and P51s, I think. And it represents 51,000 years in the future and 52,000 years in the future. And that they live underground, and that their society, the earth, is completely just destroyed and decimated. And that they are moving their population to our time. And so that goes back to that idea that what if that, so, and then there's a theory that Roswell was actually time travelers. So now put those two together. What if she was right and Roswell was actually time travelers, and one of the time travelers that came through and said, hey, there's a dangerous alien race on this planet that's trying to enslave you, and they're operating with these families that have been ruling over you for a long time. We're going to help you defeat them, but it's going to take time to build a technological infrastructure to do it. That would be a great scenario, right?
It would be. One thing that you kind of made me think about while you're explaining that, one thing he could expand on is non-human biologics. That opens the door for what it is. So yeah, we're there. I'll do a coffee ad, and then I'll let you do your ad, and then we'll do these Rumble rants. And then I got some ideas for next week, and I'll see which one you feel like doing, and maybe the audience can chime in. I think they're two cool ones. Still haven't tried 1775 coffee? Now's your shot. The 1775 starter kit just dropped, only 1,000 units. You're getting the bold dark roast that hits hard, the smooth medium roast, and the Vitality mushroom coffee for clean energy and laser focus, no crash. All single origin, small batch, toxin free and mold free. Plus, you're also getting a gold spoon clip, because freedom isn't scooped with plastic. A frother strong enough to stir up your coffee and your mother-in-law's opinions, and a black 1775 tumbler. $107 worth of coffee and gear, yours for $99. This is for the ones who have been watching 1775 blow up on Rumble, wondering if it's actually worth it. Spoiler, it is. Go to 1775coffee.com/studio and grab your starter kit before they're gone. Bold beans, clean fuel, and a morning routine that stands for something just like Rumble does. 1775coffee.com/studio. And it's yours, Josh.
All right, guys, we're going to do this one right here. I want to tell you about something that's not very well known, but it's an incredibly powerful. It's called Ace Manan. It's a compound from aloe vera that massively supports your body's stem cell production, cell health, immune system function that matters because your body replaces about 1% of its cells every day. As well as we age and we have health issues, we produce cells less efficiently. The thing is, almost no aloe products have Ace Manan because it breaks down after harvest, and you can't get enough from eating raw aloe because aloe's laxative compound. However, Emerald Med created a stabilized Ace Manan supplement with the laxative compound removed. It's called Aloe RX. They made it for the pharmacies, and now it's available to the public. I want to explain the value of our Aloe RX. Stem cell injections can have amazing results, but can cost $10,000 to $40,000 for treatment. Aloe RX isn't the same thing as stem cell injections, but it massively supports your body's stem cell production for less than $100. You could literally give your body this for 16 years for the same price as one stem cell treatment. For people who don't need something extreme like a stem cell injection, but want to help their body significantly, this is arguably the best value on the market. The longer you take it, the more compounding support you have. If you want to support a company that supports our channel, plus free speech with ads, check out Emerald Med's Aloe RX. Click the link below to learn more and get 30% off Aloe RX today.
Boom. Shout out to Sticky LLC. Actually, I could show this on the screen too. At least hit the like button with that $2 super chat over there on YouTube. Thanks for the support right there. And I agree. Smash that that thumb and hit the heart. Let me bring up the Rumble rants on my side, and then we'll get to the Rumble rants on Joshua's side. $50 coming in from the Boom Diggity. Krill sounds like Q Rill. Post 10:56 p.m. This was a link, and that was a link that we shared earlier in the chat. So thank you, the Boom Diggity, for sharing that. That was a solid find. $5 coming in from the new Prue, 219.26. Women's USA hockey equals gold. Women's USA figure skating, Lisa Liu equals gold. White House equals aliens. What a day. Oh, a lot of gold and get some aliens. Dollar for dollar, ZBM. Wow, my mom had 8 miscarriages, and the doctors eventually figured out that her body was mistakenly seeing these babies as a foreign virus, so her system would attack them by thickening her blood. Crazy. Yeah, there's crazy space that we had last night where a lot of this information was dropped, ZBM, and I'll be posting that on the Rumble Premium here in the next few days for those of you guys who want to hear it. Josh was there, Game Tech was there, just a phenomenal conversation.
Oh yeah, you got a copy of that, send it over.
Yeah, absolutely will. $5 from Boycott Utune. What if the aliens live underground but exist among us? Is that why they call them the deep state? I like that, Boycott. I like that, man. Oh man, dollar for dollar. Just Ice Fan. Sorry guys, I just jumped on, but did you see his post tonight? POTUS, he's going to start exposing UFOs with Pete. Yes, yeah, we definitely did. $20 from PS Farm Girl. I can't wait to find out about RH negative. Only blood to be given to everyone. Rogham is the shot given to moms after birth of RH mom.
There it is.
Yeah. So yeah, this really tied into that conversation. We should do a show on blood types. That'd be a lot of fun too.
Yeah.
Let's see, $17 Keck from Ravelin. Alex Collier, shown in that old video, hosts webinars every Friday. Tomorrow, 2 p.m. Eastern. He's interviewing Elena Danan. He's been talking about this stuff since the 1990s. AlexCollier.org. Right on.
I'm going to hit him up. So we got a connection to him.
Heck yeah. You know what? I'll hit up Liz tomorrow too. We should bring her on to do an episode on Pizzagate.
We should. And next week, I'll let everybody know, next week we have a special guest coming on. The creator and author of Cult of the Medics, which I have to send over to Alpha so we can start watching to get prepared for next week. My good friend David Whitehead, DW Truth Warrior. And I'm telling you, you're going to want to tune in next week because all of this satanic occult stuff, all of the pharmakia, pharmacies, everything that you could think of is going to be talked about, even the alien component. Next week, we're going to talk about current events and what's happening right now. It's going to be a badass show.
Going to be a good time. Going to be a good time. Who knows what spawns from that? $10 from PS Farmer again. Josh, I went to Mesa Verde Park. I could sense the energy, and they seem surprised, but we're okay with that dimension. Spirit energy?
Very possible. It is Indian reservation.
I always think Young Guns when I think Indian reservations. $20 coming in from Desert Jewel 17. Notice things with Prince Andrew really began to blow up after Trump's state visit in September. Did he take some docs to Charles? Also, Marine One hydraulic problem on that trip. Sabotage? I'm gonna have to dig into that. I heard some people mention some issues with Marine One. I didn't hear what it was. I didn't know it was hydraulic. But if you got some info on that, Desert Jules, if you could shoot it out to me, definitely would appreciate that. I'd like to get some more info on it. $20 from Kioki22. Alpha and Josh, I appreciate what you guys do. Aloha from your brother in arms from Hawaii.
Love it.
Aloha. Love. I've never been to Hawaii. Would love to go to Hawaii. That is my last one, Josh. So I will turn it over to you now.
You guys, I love you. But man, Alpha kicks our ass every time. Look at that. He had a full page. I got 5. My Doe Eyes, $5 Rumble rant tip via the Rumble wallet. Thank you so much, My Doe Eyes. I appreciate it. $10 Taw 222. Here's to the 3rd episode of your new show. Thank you so much, Taw. $50 the Boom Diggity going between Alpha and Josh's show. Do you think all the penguin memes have to do with the Arctic penguin pineal gland and its structure and the Antarctica in the same shape as a human brain? Pineal gland equals light. Wow, that's actually a really good theory.
Save that one or screenshot it because I want to dig into that too.
$5 from S Hole. Is Alpha a Palladian? I don't know. Maybe. I don't know. I've never seen Palladians with a beard, but who knows? Cousin Vinny 1, I have a place for you guys to stay in Santa Fe. Let's converse and maybe do a Oh, yeah, dude. Absolutely. $5. Rumble Rant. Cousin Vinny, if you are on X, if I'm following you, send me a message. If you're on any of my platforms, send me a message. Or just go to my shows. You should see an email address in there. Send me an email because I will get a hold of you and we'll actually set this up. That'll be great for us because we're going to do this.
So I had a gentleman that's really into the Galactic Federation and studying all that stuff. I'm not going to knock it. I'm not going to support. I don't know. I'm open and receptive to everything. But this gentleman was adamant on connecting with me, and we finally did. This is just a story of something that maybe me and Josh can do on a show that's coming. So I'm just only going to share just a little bit to make it a little interesting here. Give you guys a hook, right? But he reaches out, and so we end up having this conversation because this does involve time travel and an experience that I had. I don't share a whole lot of stuff because, I'm still new. Josh knows this. A lot of you that have followed me know this. My red pill's only been 2019, 2020. So I'm still uncomfortable with a lot of these things, even having my own experiences. It's why I really appreciate this show, because it's helping me get comfortable, and it gives me a place to share this while we talk about all kinds of different things. And Q-Fan, I did see your Rumble Rant come through, and I'll share that. Let me just fire off the story real quick. So during the course of this conversation, before we get into like the Galactic Federation stuff, he says something that triggers this memory that I'm very clear about. So I start sharing something with them that there's only very few people in my family that know this experience that I had. And so then he says, and was it like this? I'm like, yeah. And then I go, and then this. He goes, and did it look like this? And I said, yeah. And this dude we've never met. It was a mutual audience member that connected us. And he had experienced things that I had experienced, but for him, and there was only differences in colors of a uniform, but the descriptions and the feelings of what happened during both of our evolutions there were identical.
Interesting.
And so this goes into, before we get into the whole reason that he wanted to connect with me, right? And so I'm sitting there thinking, there's just no way he could make that up. Like, there's no way. Like, I'm doubting something. I'm having this real life conversation with them, and at the same time, I'm doubting Thomas, right? I'm just like, no, this is not happening. This is not the world. And so, anyways, I will share all the details of that story on a future Overwatch and the Guardian, because it does spawn into some stuff. But to answer the question, is Alpha Palladian? According to this guy, no, I am not. He says that the star family that I'm from is Sirian and Sirius B. And so for those of you that have done those studies, those there, and he gave me a rundown on some very specific stuff. And like I said, this is before he ever got to have a one-on-one conversation with me. And it was quite fascinating. So maybe we'll do that show here in a couple weeks.
Let's do it. All right. Very cool.
You got some cool music for us on the way out, brother?
I can always find some cool music.
So while Josh is looking for that, let me give you guys some ideas of things that have come in my head, but you guys are the audience. Oh, and Q-Fan Addict 2 with the $2 Rumble Rant. She's actually got a couple of them. So number one, $5 Rumble Rant. Alpha, Josh. I need a desperate child needs specific directions on how and where to proceed in getting the appropriate group, not CPS, who will absolutely follow this through. I have firsthand witness. Okay, well, let me go to the next one. Information of a 7-year-old girl being trafficked. When you see more details, the gravity of reality will be irrefutable to you both. Right now, I am her only spokesperson, and I have to get proper people. And then we move into the last one on this now and free her. Read specifics in the comments, which I'll post immediately after hearing your responses. No one else is even aware, and she is in serious trouble. 100%. I have the receipts. So first thing I'll say is don't post anything in the comments, because these people out there do have tracking software that looks for stuff that populates on the internet. So you can email myself and CC Josh You can email me at alpha@thealphawarrior.tv. And then you can go down the description, or Josh, if you want to say your email on air, you can provide that now if you want.
Yeah, redpillstv@gmail.
And then this is what I'll say. If you know the physical location of this child now, and you can articulate an immediate threat that exists right now, and I'm going to be very clear, and not to be offensive, but just to be very clear, because I work law enforcement and I know what they can and can't do. If you call them, you say, I've heard this or I heard that, that's not going to be the immediacy that you think it warrants, or a lot of people may think. They don't get to kick down doors for that stuff. But if you have firsthand knowledge or a statement from the child themselves that this is happening and this is where she's at, I would tell you right now, immediately call your county sheriff. That's who I would call. Like, zero hesitation, and do that. So you have something that's on the record and people that can start that conversation. And then, like I said, you can email me the specifics. And if you do it tonight, I'll look at it tonight. Or you can do it in the morning. I'll look at it in the morning, and based off what you provide me, I can give you my advice moving further. But if there's an immediate threat now, and you know the location, and you have something that's not speculation, but that's something that is evidence, I would tell you call 911 as soon as, I would say call now.
Yeah.
So with that, folks, prayer is a powerful thing. So, pray for this little one. We don't need to know their name. We can still pray for them.
All right, guys. Much love, respect. God bless. Take care. Have a great night. We'll